Welcome and thank you for joining the NEHA National Webinar Series. Today we will be focusing on the role and responsibilities of the Food Safety and Inspection Service, the public health agency for the U.S. Department of Agriculture. I'm Kirsty Denbrock, Chief Learning Officer at NEHA, and I will be your moderator. Our presenters today include Robert Bain. Robert was appointed the Assistant Administrator for the USDA FSIS Office of Investigation, Enforcement, and Audit in September of 2020. In this capacity, he leads the agency's surveillance and investigation activities for incidents of foodborne illness outbreaks, recalls, natural disasters, and intentional contamination, and oversees state and foreign audit programs and enforcement and litigation functions. Joining him today is Thomas Calero, who has been with the agency for over 25 years. He has worked in various positions during his years at the USDA, mostly in New England and the Mid-Atlantic states. He is currently the Regional Director for the Northeast region within FSIS, Office of Investigation, Enforcement, and Audit, and is a strong food safety advocate. So we ask that you please write your questions into the chat box, and we will address them during the Q&A at the end of this presentation. If you are not a NEHA member and you enjoyed this session, we invite you to become one at neha.org. Gentlemen, let's begin.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm pleased to join you today to talk a little bit about the USDA Food Safety and Inspection Service and our role in protecting public health. A few months ago, Sandra Eskin, the Deputy Undersecretary for Food Safety, connected me with Dr. Dijak to talk through some of what we do, particularly in the retail arena. And we agreed that a webinar like this one would be a great platform for us to talk about our mission and where it intersects with your roles as environmental health professionals, and most importantly, how we can collaborate with you in our shared goal of public health protection. So I'm going to start out with just a few slides that will provide you with a broad overview of FSIS, who we are, our primary mission, and some insight into the different program areas within the agency. And then I'll turn it over to Tom to provide some more in-depth discussion about our Compliance and Investigations Division, and the investigators that you might encounter in what we call the in-commerce environment, which comprises everything from wholesale distributorships and public warehouses to retail stores and restaurants to transporters and brokerage firms and more. So FSIS is responsible for ensuring that meat, poultry, and egg products are safe, wholesome, and properly labeled. That is our mission. And as we carry out that mission, our vision is to ensure that everyone's food is safe. And so food safety and the prevention of foodborne illnesses are always the driving factors behind the policies that we develop, the messages we deliver to industry and to consumers, and the enforcement actions that we take, and the decisions that we make about how we allocate our resources. Our regulatory authority is derived from a series of acts of Congress, namely the Federal Meat Inspection Act, the Poultry Products Inspection Act, the Egg Products Inspection Act, and the Humane Methods of Slaughter Act. And we ensure food safety through a series of policies and regulations that define how establishments can operate and produce a safe and wholesome product. So taken together, these statutes, policies, and regulations form the basis for the actions that FSIS takes to prevent foodborne illness. FSIS inspection personnel conduct daily inspection tasks to verify that regulated establishments that produce meat and poultry products for commerce comply with the acts and the regulations. So currently FSIS has around 9,000 total personnel, with approximately 7,800 of those folks working on the front lines at more than 6,800 federally inspected meat, poultry, and egg establishments across the United States and the territories. So our frontline personnel are involved in the inspection of slaughter and processing operations, as well as conducting import and export verification activities. And over 90% of the slaughter and processing establishments that are regulated by FSIS are considered small, which means that they have fewer than 500 employees, or very small, meaning they would have fewer than 10 employees or do less than $2.5 million per year in sales. And so this slide just gives you an idea of the volume of inspection work performed by our agency. During fiscal year 2022, FSIS implant personnel ensured public health requirements were met in meat and poultry establishments that slaughtered or processed 162 million head of livestock, 9.7 billion poultry carcasses, and 2.8 billion pounds of liquid, frozen, and dried egg products. And implant inspection personnel also conducted 7.6 million food safety procedures to ensure all federally inspected facilities continue to meet food safety and wholesomeness requirements. So FSIS is a data-driven agency that leads with science to advance food safety while continuing to conduct inspection at all meat, poultry, and egg products establishments. The agency's made remarkable strides in transforming our inspection systems and procedures to be more effective in meeting the public health mission. In recent years, not only did we further the implementation of new poultry inspection procedures, but we also finalized rules to innovate swine slaughter inspection and update egg products inspection. We're also piloting new beef inspection procedures in a select number of beef slaughter establishments. The next few slides are just going to introduce you to some of the agency leaders and the program areas that they oversee. Here we have our two political appointees in the Office of Food Safety. So Dr. Emilio Esteban is the Undersecretary for Food Safety. Prior to his Senate confirmation in January of this year, Dr. Esteban spent many years working with FSIS's Office of Public Health Science, most recently as the agency's chief scientist. So we're very pleased to have someone with the extensive agency experience that he has to be placed into the role of Undersecretary. And of course, Sandra Eskin is our Deputy Undersecretary for Food Safety. She's the one that got me in touch with Dr. Dijak and by extension, all of you. And Sandra spent many years as the project director for the Food Safety and Pew Charitable Trust in Washington, D.C., and she brings a wealth of experience to the position as a public policy consultant to numerous consumer advocacy and public interest organizations. And here we have the FSIS administrator, Paul Kicker. Paul's been in this role for over 4 years now. He started out as a food inspector over 30 years ago. He's held many positions in the agency since then. Terry Ninteman is his deputy. She also has extensive agency experience, having led various program areas, including the Office of Policy and Program Development. Next up, we have Paul Wosley. Paul is the Assistant Administrator for the Office of Field Operations, so he has oversight of the 7,000 plus inspection personnel that I talked about earlier. Again, those are the folks responsible for performing daily inspection at well over 6,000 meat, poultry, and egg products establishments all over the country. And this is me. As mentioned before, I'm the Assistant Administrator for the Office of Investigation, Enforcement, and Audit. In this role, I oversee the Compliance and Investigations Division, which conducts surveillance and investigation activities on in-commerce facilities that handle meat, poultry, and egg products. We also have a staff that performs audits of state meat and poultry inspection programs that operate under a cooperative agreement with FSIS, as well as a staff that audits food safety systems of foreign countries that are permitted to export meat, poultry, and egg products to the United States. We also have a couple other staffs that handle various enforcement and litigation functions for the agency. And this is Dr. Denise Evelyn. Denise is the Assistant Administrator for the Office of Public Health Science. They develop science-based, data-driven recommendations for agency decision makers. They also have 3 field laboratories that analyze a very large volume of product samples collected by our inspection personnel for pathogens, chemical residues, allergens, species verification, and more. And they have an applied epidemiology staff that leads foodborne illness outbreak investigations and coordinates with our Compliance and Investigations Division to arrange for any traceback activities that need to occur. And here we have Rachel Edelstein. She is the Assistant Administrator for the Office of Policy and Program Development. They are charged with developing agency policy, including formal rulemaking. They also develop instructions for field personnel to implement those policies, as well as guidance for industry to ensure that they understand those policies. And they manage the approval process for product labeling. And finally, we have Carol Blake, our Assistant Administrator for the Office of Public Affairs and Consumer Education. This group is essentially the voice of the agency. They handle congressional inquiries and briefings. They develop food safety messaging for the public, and they facilitate dialogue with members of industry, consumer advocacy groups, and other stakeholders on changing policies and other emerging issues that are pertinent to the agency's mission. If you see a TV commercial or a YouTube video about clean, separate, cook, and chill, that's an example of the work that Carol's team does. And we have a number of venues that we use to communicate with stakeholders. Some primary examples are on this slide. I encourage everyone to explore our website at www.fsis.usda.gov. There's a lot of great information there, including details on product recalls and public health alerts. You'll also find resources on basic food safety, how to obtain and grant of inspection, guidance for retailers, and even career opportunities with FSIS. We also publish a constituent update with news for stakeholders. You can subscribe to it on the website along with many other feeds and publications. And you can find links to download a couple of neat apps there as well. One of those is the Food Keeper app, which has information on how long certain products can generally be stored. And my personal favorite is the MPI directory, which contains the name, establishment number, address, phone number, and DBAs for all of the meat, poultry, and egg products establishments that are inspected by FSIS. And it's searchable by name, establishment number, zip code, or even type of establishment combined with location or zip code. And of course, we routinely hold employee town hall meetings, stakeholder meetings with industry and consumer groups, and roundtables dedicated to small and very small establishments. And so that is what I have to get us started this afternoon. I can take any questions that there may be on what I just shared. And if there are none, I will turn it over to Tom.
One of the questions that I have is, how do I know if meat or poultry product is inspected by FSIS, or how about imported products?
Sure. Okay, so if you look on the packaging and labeling of a meat or poultry product that you see in your grocery store, you'll see a USDA inspected and passed logo on it. For meat products, just be a round circle that has the establishment number and says USDA inspected and passed. And for poultry products, I believe it's USDA inspected and passed for wholesomeness. And again, generally speaking, you'll see the establishment number inside of that inspection legend. Sometimes the establishment number is in an alternate location on the labeling. For imported products, it's something similar, but it'll be the inspection legend of the country that the product came from, so it'll look slightly different. I don't know if Tom happens to have in his presentation perhaps some examples that he could show, but it'll be very similar to the inspection legend that you would see for U.S. inspected and passed product, but it'll be different, and then it'll have the indicator of the country. Like for Mexico, for example, the legend has a TIF, tip plant number, so it'll have the establishment number for the Mexican establishment, and it'll say TIF. So.
Okay. Let me go back to Ashish and Thomas. Where are we on getting Thomas's presentation?
I'll start off. So Robert did a lot of this already, some of the background. So my office, I'm located within the Office of Investigation, Enforcement, and Audit within the Compliance Investigation Division. Robert is our Assistant Administrator. I'm the Deputy Regional Director, and that essentially means a person by the name of Joe Priori. He's my Regional Director. We essentially direct the activities of investigators within the Northeast, and that encompasses New England, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Ohio, all the way out to Wisconsin, which includes Indiana. So we have a pretty big area, and I have a map later on that kind of shows a breakdown by country, by the country. So again, Robert went over this slide, advancing food safety inspection. We are a data-driven agency, and that's kind of how we like to think of ourselves. We're always looking at science and looking at new and better and innovative ways to do what we do and be more efficient in our approach. And Robert went over this. Our authorities are derived from the Federal Meat Inspection Act and the Poultry Product Inspection Act and the Egg Product Inspection Act. Humane handlings through the Humane Methods of Slaughter Act. And if everyone didn't know, the Federal Meat Inspection Act is over 100 years old. It's crazy to think when you look at some of the laws today, how thick and cumbersome those laws are. When you look at the Federal Meat Inspection Act, it's just a few pages, really. It's just incredible, the amount of products that we inspect year to year under the authorities derived from that act. And when you see how thin it is, it still amazes me how germane it is today. Again, our mission, we take this mission incredibly serious, and our vision, everyone's food is safe. And I think that's what we all do on this webinar, right? I mean, that's why we come to work. That's why we love what we do. We just want to make sure people are safe when they sit down with their loved ones for dinner, for lunch, we're coming up on Thanksgiving. And I don't want to say Christmas because I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but when we sit down to eat that turkey or, our hams or beef or whatever, we want to make sure people are doing it safely. Again, right, 1906, incredible. 1957, the PPI came in. The Egg Product Inspection Act a little later, and then Humane Methods of Slaughter Act, and of course the Agriculture Marketing Act. Again, about 9,000 employees, 7,800 are our frontline workforce, which is pretty amazing, and 6,800 regulated establishments. And I'll talk a little bit. So if you want to produce, let's say, a sausage product or a ham product or something like that, and you want to do it commercially, meaning you want to sell that ham to another business for resale, you need to do that under federal inspection, under FSIS federal inspection. So you apply for what we call a grant of inspection. You do that through our department. We say, okay, whatever. Of course, government, it's never that simple, right? But there's a little bit of a process. You go through the process. FSIS grants you an establishment number, and that establishment number is specific to you. Right. And that gets into traceability. We're at these inspection establishments every day, or at least we have the opportunity to be there every day, which is a little different from maybe a local board of health or even a state agency that may inspect a firm, a few times a year. We're there every day. And slaughter plants, we're there throughout the process, just to show you how involved this industry is. Again, our organization, USDA, Food Safety Inspection Service, then our office, and then our division. The USDA is a huge department. I think we're second only to the DOD. We have somewhere 27, 28 agencies within the USDA. I believe the FSIS is the only regulatory one. You'll see, we're responsible for WIC, the Forest Service. I mean, it's just, Smokey the Bear is us, which I don't think many people know. It's just incredible the reach we have in everyone's life in this country, whether they realize it or not, in a number of different facets. So what we do are also investigation, enforcement, and audit. So we conduct surveillance and investigation activities of regulated and in-commerce facilities. And that means, your Cisco's, things like that, anyone who distributes meat, we're going to inspect. So I like to think of it as, we talked a little bit about the inspectors being in the plant, verifying the inspection systems work and that they're producing a safe product. Once that product leaves those doors, it essentially becomes our responsibility to make sure its journey to your table is a safe journey. So we're going to inspect at warehouses, distributors, potentially restaurants, retail markets, transporters, really anyone who touches that product, and just make sure that it remains safe and wholesome and properly marked and labeled. We also investigate foodborne illness outbreaks, respond to natural disasters and intentional contamination events. So natural disasters may be hurricanes, tornadoes, things like that. Unfortunately, those things do happen, happen with increasing regularity. So our role with that is if a distributor gets destroyed or damaged, or roof caves in, or they lose electricity, we just verify that that operator is doing what they're supposed to be doing with that product. They're not trying to sell it because it may be compromised, right? Flood, water, what have you, and just make sure they're taking the appropriate measures to dispose of it, or whatever the appropriate disposition is of that product, that they're not just, trying to sell it out their back door. And foodborne illness outbreaks, we work heavily with CDC, and Denise Evelyn, Robert showed you her photo and kind of what she does, our Office of Public Health and Science. They lead our outbreaks. We're the boots on the ground in our office. So we conduct the trace back, trace forwards. And this is where our agencies connect, right? People from NEHA, you may see us out doing this. We may be connecting you, gathering information, talking things through. And this is, I love doing foodborne illness outbreaks. Unfortunately, it means people are sick. For me, there's no greater feeling in investigating these, solving these, putting an end to the outbreak, and potentially preventing additional people from becoming ill. And of course, you can't have an inspection program without enforcement of it, right? Because you have to have some teeth. And that's where our office comes in as well. We execute and apply enforcement of our civil, criminal, and administrative sanctions and authorities. And as Robert said, his office does verify state meat and poultry programs are conducted in a manner at least equal to the federal program. There's about 28 right now, and we've had 2 new states come on this year, which is highly unusual. I can't remember the last, it's been years and years, if not decades, since we've had a state program come on and want to run their own operation. And of course, Robert talked about verifying meat and poultry products are equivalent as they get imported to the U.S. And that is an incredible task to start from beginning to end. A country says they want to be able to export products to the U.S. We go there, we look at the paperwork, the whole 9 yards. We verify that inspection system is equivalent to what it is here. And after that, each establishment within that country has to essentially apply with that country's authorities to say, yes, I want to export meat to the U.S. And it goes through that approval process. And of course, it's 100% inspection when it lands at the U.S., which is a little different from the FDA. It's an incredible amount of work we do here. Not to toot our own horn, but it is just to show you the scope of what we do and how we do it. So my division, we investigate violations of food safety, food defense, and other consumer protection statutory requirements. Think of that as unapproved source, right? We call it non-federally inspected, which means that if that piece of meat or that processed product wasn't processed at a USDA inspected facility and is being offered for sale somewhere, that's where we get involved. You all may use that term unapproved source. There are a number of exemptions, so we have to navigate those exemptions, make sure that person or firm or entity doesn't qualify for an exemption. And we have the wherewithal to do that, and we're happy to do that. And then, of course, if it is a violation, we document it, we go back to the source, we document that, and we just make sure that that behavior gets corrected moving forward. We control unsafe or volatile products through detentions, civil seizures, and volunteer recalls. And detentions, really, we have reason to believe product is adulterated, misbranded, we can detain it. We can lawfully only detain that product for 20 days. So we are on a time clock. Most other entities, whether state or local, they can embargo products just about forever. We're on the clock as soon as we put that tag down. Usually by day 10, if we're not seeing any action, the firm's just being recalcitrant, we have to start procedures to move towards civil seizure of that product. And of course, volunteer recalls. Like FDA, you'll see if you subscribe to our news feed, you'll see we do recall a number of products throughout the year. That can be, product that came here imported product that came here without the proper inspections, to product with foreign objects, which is the biggest one, whether it's plastic, metal, what have you. And then we develop our cases through surveillance investigation activities to ensure appropriate criminal, administrative, civil sanctions are carried out. Again, just make sure our enforcement program has teeth. Outbreak investigations, I spoke a little bit about that. It is a huge undertaking for us. That's priority number one. We work with the CDC, through the FDA, through local and state Boards of Health, Department of Agriculture, what have you. Whenever there's an outbreak, E. coli, Salmonella, LM, whatever it is, that is our number one focus as soon as we're notified. We're boots on the ground, we're out the door. We also do FSIS's Homeland Security Mission area, including preparation, detection, prevention, protection, responsive by security threats in the U.S. We do a lot of, maybe not a lot, but we do, the Super Bowl will be heavily involved in the RNC and the DNC this year. And again, just working with a number of different agencies just to make sure that the meat and poultry products that are being served aren't compromised, and in this case, intentionally compromised, right? No one wants to see a Super Bowl where you have an intentional contamination event. It'd be, awful with a capital A. And of course, we have regulatory oversight over business that engage in the transportation, storage, and distribution of meat, poultry, and egg products in commerce. And then we execute and implement our agency policies related to criminal investigations of both domestically imported products throughout the United States. And our division's a little small. We're like 125 investigators, give or take. Just depending, people move around, what have you. We're in every state, maybe not stationed in every state, but we have a footprint in every state, every territory throughout the United States. So we are available. And this is how we accomplish our agency mission, surveillance activities, and that's just a fancy way of saying inspections. We conduct inspections, right? We like to call surveillance activities. We like to be fancy. Investigations, enforcements, product control actions, right? We call detentions. If we can't get a voluntary disposition, you may embargo it. Food defense activities. We do food defense activities everywhere we go, just verifying that the firm has some sort of wherewithal. They've at least considered food defense, right? They have cameras, they lock doors, they restrict access, whatever that looks like. We just kind of make sure that they have some information on it. We hand out some activities, some outreach stuff on it. And we have an e-commerce system, which is just a web-based database that we capture information on each place we visit. Our emergency response, and then of course the liaison activities, which is what we're doing today. We love nothing more. And Hillary Clinton said this years ago, right? You can't raise a family. It takes a village, right, to raise a family. And I take that to mean food safety. It takes a village to ensure that food is safe. And when I say village, it means, FSIS, FDA, local, state, everyone here on this webinar, that's the village for me. And that's why liaison, in my opinion, it's incredibly important. And here's our regions. The yellow is the Northeast. You see it's we go all the way out to Wisconsin, which is in a different time zone. So it's a little funky for us. And Joe Piormi is the regional director. And once I'm done, I can send out our contact information, which gives all our contact information for the 4 regions. Our Southeast region, which is headed by Larry Hortert, which is here in the green. The blue, which encompasses essentially the entire Midwest, really. That's covered by Mr. Sean Smith. And then our Western region is this huge area in red, which includes Alaska and Hawaii. That is also covered by Sean Smith right now. And you see the red also, Guam, America Samoa, Northern Mariana. And our director actually was out in these areas this year doing liaison activities, meeting with regulators out there. So our coverage, we just want to make sure we're not forgetting about people. It's real easy to meet people in New York, but a little harder to meet people in Alaska. So we make an effort to get out there and get some face time with folks that maybe we don't get out there as often as maybe we would like. So when we do our inspection activities, our surveillance activities, we assess food safety, food defense, non-food safety consumer protections. If there's an order in place, and that's a traditional order, right? They have order came down, they have to do XYZ. We make sure that's happening. And we do that both at domestic and imported facilities operating in commerce. We have jurisdiction all over the country. Right now, it's about 70, almost 750,000 businesses that are in the meat industry, that are in commerce. Obviously, we don't get to them every year. We do get to our we call them tier one firms, and those are our bigger distributors, warehouses. They handle over 100,000 pounds of a meatable product a year. We get to them at least once every 18 months. And then everything else is more or less ad hoc as the need arises, or there's complaints, referrals, things like that. So we conduct investigations and related activities at businesses, again, where meat, poultry, and egg products and shell eggs are produced, sold, distributed, offered for sale, imported, exported, stored, otherwise handled or prepared. And when violation of the acts or regulations are alleged or detected, we can control or detain, adulterate, misbrand, or otherwise violative product in commerce. And we will investigate allegations, any kind of referral. We look into violations, any food safety incidents. We conduct foodborne illness traceback investigations. We collect, maintain, and secure evidence, which is a big thing for us. And we document investigative reports to support agency decisions, investigative findings, and any legal actions. So our acts spell what we can and cannot do. So if we see a violation and we document it, we have to maintain that evidence. We have to collect it in a certain fashion, and we have to secure it. It oftentimes contains PII, so we do have to protect that information and maintain a certain way because they are legal cases. And often within the FMAA and PPIA, there's certain things we can and cannot do. So we will refer cases that are a little more serious in nature to ultimately the Department of Justice for adjudication. If things are a little less serious, like a first-time violator, it's just a few pounds of product, they really didn't know what they were doing, we may handle that with the notice of warning being issued to the firm, and that just puts them on notice, like, hey, you screwed up, please don't do it again, here's the rules, here's the regulations. Then of course we follow up, right, because we have to make sure that they did get the message. If they screw up again, we'll do that process again, and then potentially seek a little more enhanced sanctions. Again, our documentation is referred to our enforcement operations staff, which Robert heads as well. And here's where I was just speaking about, we can take enforcement actions and we can recommend criminal and civil prosecutions through the USDA'S Office of General Counsel, and then to the U.S. Attorney's Office within the Department of Justice. And these are some of the actions that we have at our disposal. We can initiate criminal or civil enforcement actions through OGC or the DOJ, civil penalties, taken or initiating refusal, withdrawal of grant of federal inspection, which we don't do very often, but it is at our disposal. It is somewhat rare that an inspected facility, I don't want to say the word screw up, but screws up enough where we have to take that next step. Typically, we're looking at suspension, things like that. It's kind of like, hey, this happened, you need to correct X, Y, Z. They'll put in procedures, corrective actions. They'll tell us how they're going to prevent that from occurring. But if that obviously is a continuing issue and it doesn't get resolved, we can take away their federal inspection. Again, it is exceedingly rare. And talked about product control action. Again, we have reason to believe that meat or poultry found in commerce is adulterated and misbranded. We can control products. We can detain. Again, that puts on the clock. We often try to obtain a voluntary disposition, which means, we'll ask the firm, hey, do you want to just throw this out and be done with it? If it's a small amount of product and we're not too worried about it for safety wise, we can give it back for the personal use. Sometimes we'll work with local and state departments that can embargo it, especially if we have a large amount of product and we know it's going to take a little while to suss out. We may ask them to, like, hey, would you guys mind embargoing this warehouse for us? Because it's, rodent defiled and some of your products, some of our product. We'll ask you to just go ahead and embargo that whole thing while we straighten everything out. Seizure actions are not common at all. I could probably count on one hand how many we've ever done. It is it is truly, truly rare and cumbersome. It is a bear. Again, we only have 20 days. So it is a legal proceeding. We have to ask the U.S. attorney through the Office of General Counsel to initiate that seizure action and seize products to ensure that it's not sold or distributed to consumers. Our food defense activities, protection of food products from intentional adulteration, chemical, biological, physical. We conduct, again, food defense activities everywhere we go just to make sure that the firm has some wherewithal, that they at least have the ability to identify and assess potential vulnerabilities. And that's kind of, we help them out, right? And we have some sample food defense plans that we give the firm. For us, it's not, for a federal establishment, it is required. For us in commerce, like a Cisco, it's not required that they have a food defense plan. We absolutely encourage it, and we give them some templates to help them guide their activities. And of course, we educate. We just don't violate. We'd much rather educate distributors, importers, what have you, about how to improve food safety and food defense. Significant incidents that present grave or potentially grave threats to public health. That could be any kind of threat agent. Again, doesn't happen often, but we have to be cognizant of that. We may be called upon to assist other program areas as well as other federal, state, or tribal agencies in conducting activities. Again, talk about the RNC and DNC. We're working with dozens of other agencies to make sure this goes off without a hitch. Liaison activities. Again, for me, it takes a village. That's why I'm so passionate about these liaison activities. And thank you for having us. It is truly appreciated that we have an opportunity to present to you and get to know you all. And we truly think of all these other agencies within USDA, as well as federal, whether it's FDA, CDC, the state, local counterparts. We consider you our sister agencies. And I wanted to leave some time for questions. And I know we have about an hour, and we suffered through some technical difficulties. I thought we did okay there. But I do want to save some time for questions. And I think this webinar is scheduled for an hour, which leaves us about 14, 15 minutes. So I am absolutely happy. And I think Robert is still on as well.
I'm on.
Perfect.
All right, wonderful. Well, you will not be disappointed because there are a lot of questions. So let's get started. I'm going to combine a few of them because they're very similar. They're asking if, for the USDA, is there a specific catfish that they inspect? Is it catfish only, or do they inspect other type of fish? And if you do not, what agency does cover and inspect seafood?
So we inspect. Oh, go ahead, Robert. You want to know?
Go ahead. No, you got it.
Yeah, we inspect all Siliformes, which encapsulates catfish. Catfish is one type of Siliformes. The other may be like, there's a number, right? Which we've had to learn on the fly. But, swai, bass, things like that. We do not inspect shrimp, shark, anything like that. All that falls to a number of other agencies, including NOAA, the FDA. But, catfish, broadly is our fish we regulate.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on. This one is regarding enforcement. And they ask, is the enforcement of FSIS criminal, civil, and administrative sanctions? And are the authorities absolute? Is there a reference to big or small establishments who violate? And if these violations depend whether they're small or big, and is there any leeway?
So
go ahead, Robert. Go ahead. Yeah. I was just going to say whether or not we ought to pursue an enforcement through the administrative process, criminal or civil process, really depends on the circumstances. It's a case-by-case basis, and it's not tied to whether the establishment is large, small, or even the type of establishment. A lot of times it will depend on the significance of the violation, the compliance history of the firm that we're dealing with, things like intent, the impact that it had on consumers. So there can be a variety of factors. So no, I would not say that the which avenue we opt to pursue is absolute. Tom, I don't know. Did you want to add anything to that?
No, that's it. It really depends on the violation and circumstances surrounding that violation. I mean, we've gone after, huge companies and smaller companies. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. We don't discriminate.
Yep. And like Tom said, our goal is to educate, so we want to make sure that farms understand how to be compliant. And then, if it's a situation where they appear to be unable or unwilling to comply, then we'll pursue it from there based on the specific set of circumstances in front of us.
Thank you. Next question. What is the connection between FSIS and forestry?
So it's just that they're both housed under the U.S. Department of Agriculture. So FSIS is strictly dealing with meat, poultry, and egg products and slaughter forms inspection. Forestry is a different game altogether. They're just a sister agency under that same Department of Agriculture umbrella.
Yeah, and I hope I didn't misspeak. I meant, like Smokey the Bear's ours, meaning USDA'S, right? We belong to USDA. We're in that arena.
The big picture, right?
Yeah, there's 1 million agencies within USDA. It's truly amazing how many agencies there are.
And that's why we appreciate both of you coming on today and clearing some of this up for us. The next question is from an individual who would like to know what they should focus on most during a public health surveillance. They add what steps should they be taking into consideration when conducting a public surveillance?
Okay, well, so I guess I would just have to say it would depend on the specific agency that this individual works for and the mission of that agency. For our folks that operate in the in-commerce environment, their goal is to ensure that meat and poultry products come from approved sources, that they're appropriately labeled, and that they're held under sanitary conditions and not adulterated. So that's the mindset that they have when they go into it. The questions that they ask and the things that they look at may vary based on the type of business that they're visiting. But as far as, other agencies and any sort of crossover that they may have with FSIS, I guess, this would probably be a good opportunity, Tom, for you to kind of talk about grinding records and LM daily best practices and sort of, the initiative that we have to kind of share that information with our regulatory partners in hopes of them providing it to the folks in the retail environment. So Tom, I'll let you pick it up from there.
Yeah, so this year we had a pretty outrageous performance measure that Robert passed down to us, but he wanted us to visit at least, 75% of all health agencies in the country, whether it's county, territory, what have you. And we not only met that measure, we exceeded it by meeting with 93% of all public health, local, state jurisdictions throughout the country, right? And part of that focus was to get folks acquainted with our grinding requirements, grinding records requirements. So we passed a regulation a few years ago that required anyone who grinds beef at retail stores that grind beef for sale keep certain records. And I can share that with you as well, Christy. I'll shoot you some email with that information as well, so you have it. And just getting folks familiar with that rule. And we weren't asking folks to regulate it because that's our job. We're just asking you to kind of pay the information forward. And the other topic we were eager to discuss was our Listeria in Delhi initiative. So again, a few years ago, we were conducting, I can't say survey because it wasn't a survey, but our observations. We had 27 or so questions and observations that we detailed and recorded in the Delhi, right? And that was just an effort along with FDA to get a hold of Listeria illnesses throughout the country and try and drive down the incidence of listeriosis. Things like Is the firm wrapping products after they use, they take a ham out, they slice it, are they wrapping it back up? Are they date marking it? Are they cleaning the slices at a regular interval? Are they washing their hands appropriately? Are they using gloves? Simple things that could really make a huge difference. And we have some guidance documents that we handed out as well to all these public health agencies, as well as regulated facilities that captured all this information. And again, I'll hand this out to you. And the other kind of topic we discussed was the unapproved source. Like, hey, if you guys see something out there that is a little hanky involving meat or poultry, please give us a call, right? I mean, that's what we're here for. We're here. There's so many foods out there, it's hard to even recognize what's what, and we are the SME when it comes to meat or poultry. So please give us a call if you're unsure about something. We're more than happy to get out there and work with you all and kind of work through that process together.
Wonderful. Next question. Which agency or department is responsible for regulating cooked foods which are brought into the USA and its territories by airline passengers?
So when we're talking about products brought in for personal use, there's what's known as a personal use exemption, and I think that's 50 pounds or less. Tom, is that correct?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. So that's probably going to be the case with passengers that are bringing, meat and poultry products into the country on airlines. Now, there are some countries where the Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service has restrictions because of biohazard concerns and things like that about, meat products being imported. So in those cases, I believe the expectations that CBP has an awareness of that. And as you go through customs on a return trip from a country like that, the expectation would be that those items are declared and addressed in that venue. Tom, do you have anything to add to that, or does that cover it?
That covers it. I know if everyone's watched the show, To Catch a Smuggler, right? And if you see some of that's our partners at APHIS. They are a USDA agency that conduct a lot of those inspections that look for agricultural products that passengers are bringing in that aren't declared and maybe they ought not to be bringing in. They are a sister agency for us. It's a pretty fun show if everyone hasn't had an opportunity. But that's Robert said it good. Yeah, it's a different agencies than us, but they are a sister agency.
And on that note, I'll just throw this out there, since you had that question earlier about how do I know if a meat or poultry product is inspected and passed, whether it's imported, and so we do see a lot of smuggled products, high volume of them coming in from China. So if you see products that have no, meat and poultry products that have no English language labeling and no, mark of inspection, there's a strong possibility that those are products that should not be in the United States and be offered for sale. So that would be, a good time to call your local FSIS investigator and kind of clue them into what they're seeing out there.
Okay, I think we have time for one or two more questions, and we do have more. So if both of you are okay, what I would like to do is be able to send you those additional questions that have come in that we didn't get to. And if you could possibly answer those, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Great. So here's one, and it said, is there a database where the public can view foodborne illness outbreaks? There
is posted information on the FSIS website. Tom, do you happen to know how to access that from the website?
I'll send it out for sure. I'll send out the link to everyone. Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
Okay. We have a lot of questions. I'm going to give you one more that I am going through. And it said, this individual said they read this morning the FDA show an outbreak of E. coli that affected 37 people and said their investigation, but there was no additional information. Do you know why and where and what the suspected food item, or know why the suspected food item was not listed? It's kind of put you on the spot, but.
There could be a number of reasons. A lot of times it is real tricky to pinpoint a suspected source, and there's a number of reasons for that. Tom happens to be one of the folks that we go to a lot to kind of deal with these illness outbreaks. I'm not sure which one that you're talking about specifically with the 37 illnesses. Tom, you may have some insight there, but you want to kind of give some of the barriers that we run into on a day-to-day basis as we're trying to trace the cause of these outbreaks and why that can be difficult.
Yeah, and I'm not familiar with the
Go
one
ahead,
that. Yeah, sorry, I'm not familiar with the one where this specific one. I will look into it. But yeah, there's a million barriers. People unfortunately are poor food historians, right? So when you start to pinpoint a product, a lot of it goes to geography, where they're located, how is it a localized outbreak? Is it something that's spread across states or even countries? And are they a good food historian? Can they tell you what they ate when they start going down that questionnaire? Was there travel involved? How often do they eat out? And what do they eat when they eat out? There's a million things that go into this. And unfortunately, when you get into a lot of suspect products, right? If you eat at a hamburger restaurant, we get into it, right? Is it ground beef, or is it the onions, or potentially lettuce, or maybe even tomatoes? There's a million things that go into this, and it takes a little while to suss that out. And our folks and Denise Evelyn in her shop, they are well versed in it, and they work with the FDA and CDC. But there are oftentimes outbreaks where it's 50-50, whether it's an FDA regulated food or a USDA regulated food, because it's the hamburger restaurant's the best example I could come up with. Is the toppings or the beef? And unfortunately, people are eating out at fast food restaurants 2-3 times a week. And we get outbreaks involving that type of scenario. It can be a time-consuming task to start sussing out, especially if we don't have implicated product. We don't have that silver bullet, so to speak. It is hard to say which product it is. And it is rare that we get lucky. We will often start sampling sometimes, almost at random, hoping to get lucky, but it doesn't happen very often that we're able to get that lucky. I wish.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. And my apologies for our IT glitches, and I appreciate your patience with those, with our speakers and our attendants. Thank you. So your feedback is very important to us here at NEHA to continue this type of programming. So we would love for you to fill out the survey that you will be receiving and let us know your thoughts. And with that, again, thank you for your patience and thank you for attending today. And we wish you the rest of your day as a well one. Thank you.